Welcome to Global Risk Community Chat. Today our guest is Dami Fene-Osakwe. So I'm very happy to have you here today, Dami. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Happy to be here as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, before we jump into our discussion for today, can you shortly introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely, my pleasure. My name is Dami Fene-Osakwe. Uh, I'm a risk management professional. I have over a decade, 10 plus years of experience in risk management. And I'm one of those few people who have worked, across a good number of the big multinationals, the big consulting firms. I've worked with Accenture, I've worked with Deloitte, I've worked with KPMG, I've worked with BDO. And I've worked across different regions as well. Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, West Africa. I've worked in the UAE, and I'm currently based in the UK, still practicing risk management, of course. And I'm also growing a community of risk managers, which I call the ERM community. And the focus of that community really is to help risk managers simplify risk to the business and be able to better get stakeholders and senior management on board and own risk management as their own and not as something that the second line or the risk manager does. So yeah, that's a brief about me.
Excellent. That sounds like you have a lot of experience under, like your belt. So, with that, I'm curious to hear what topic you like to discuss with me today.
Yeah, so what's on my mind today that I want to discuss is about geopolitical risk and how businesses can better evaluate its impacts. Again, simplification. So the bedrock of it is simplifying geopolitical risk and how businesses can evaluate it.
Sounds good. So then let's get right into it. Then what would be some key things regarding? So, what would be maybe some key things to evaluate geopolitical risks or its impact?
Yeah. So geopolitical risk is a risk that most, if not every business would have on their radar. Every business that's growing and expanding or that's looking to grow and expand, because every business organization that has transactions across borders is going to be impacted by geopolitical risk. So as long as you're importing or exporting or have transactions or you have locations in other countries, the political events or security events, regulations across borders globally will impact your business, right? So definitely is one that every business is and should be concerned about. The thing with geopolitical risk, though, is it's changing rapidly. That horizon changes quickly, and you have little or no control as to how quickly it changes. It's also complex because there are very different dimensions to it. Different countries, different cultures, different political environments, and there's a lot that's going on and changing quickly that the business doesn't have a full view of, nor do they have control over it. So of all these challenges, there's a lot of uncertainty as there is with risk, and businesses need to navigate these uncertainties. And the challenge comes with being able to measure the extent of the uncertainty so that they can manage it. Risk managers will typically say what you don't know, you can't measure. What you can't measure, you can't manage. And so geopolitical risk is, challenging in the sense of how difficult it is to evaluate, so measure and manage. And so yeah, that's the challenge. But I want to be able to break down some steps that can be applied, that business owners can employ to, navigate these uncertainties and better evaluate it.
Thank you so much for sharing that too. So, I want to do a follow-up question on this. So, what would be some takeaway points or maybe, actionable tips on like very short, like, quick way that risk managers can, look at it and start maybe implementing like right away. They go work tomorrow and they just, the first thing they need to be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to bring uncertainty into a manageable bucket for geopolitical specifically is businesses should be focusing on managing the impact rather than measuring the risk itself. Because we've talked about how complex it is, right? And so a business would not, you wouldn't know what the government in the US is thinking behind the administrative doors. You can only guess and estimate what might happen, So rather than trying to predict or prepare for what might, what the new legislation or what the new regulation is going to be, or what the tariff cost might look like, or what the rebels might be planning, rather than trying to estimate those and trying to put exact or estimate figures in terms of the likelihood. We always want to measure impact versus likelihood, right? Businesses should be more focused on managing the impact. So go beyond the what could go wrong and go to the what then. So regardless of what happens on a geopolitical landscape, what does it resort to for the organization? If it's a security incident that makes one of our, offices unavailable, then what backups do we have? If it's a tariff that increases our prices and makes us less competitive in the market, then what do we do about our pricing structure? How can we quickly adapt? What do we do about this market that has unstable political environments? If everything falls apart in that country, how do we salvage the business? So it's more about planning for resilience and how the business can pick back up rather than focusing on measuring the possibility of what could actually happen. The other thing is, as much as we gather data insights and we leverage on experience of what has happened in, other similar businesses, the thing with geopolitical risk is that the data insight, the challenge of interpreting the data accurately or even 100% itself is a challenge, because the fact that this business was attacked doesn't necessarily mean that your own business will be attacked, because you really don't know the motivation for that other business being attacked. So, or that because it was in the same region, say, whatever region in the world, and a similar business in that region was attacked or was sabotaged, doesn't exactly mean that you have to take, immediate, the same controls they did, because your business is different. The reasons behind this is different. So not being able to interpret that data means you just prepare for the impact. And how I like to break it down is that as geopolitical risk is a principal risk that affects different parts of the businesses, it should also be operationalized, is how I like to put it. So once you've identified the areas of impact, so it affects your supply chain, it affects your third parties, it affects maybe your pricing, so your marketing strategy, it affects physical security. You already know the areas it impacts. You want to line that up and identify the people that work in those areas, those processes, and they become the sub-risk owners of the impacts of those geopolitical risks. And of course, once you've identified the risk owners, the process owners, then you start to then discuss and agree controls. And very importantly is continuous tracking. And when it comes to continuous tracking, key risk indicators really help. So you want to have a way of measuring, for example, where it impacts supply chain, where are your suppliers concentrated? How are they going to be impacted by geopolitical issues or events in that area? How then do you diversify to ensure that if these suppliers are unavailable, you can still continue to receive your supply. And then the process owner or business owner, leader that is in charge of supply chain can own that particular risk, while the one who owns, cyber risk can also own cyber risk that may come from geopolitical events, from nation state actors. So that way you've broken down geopolitical risk from this whole magnificent uncertainty that is so dimensional, and you've broken it down into actionable areas and operationalize it into the business.
Yes, thank you so much for that as well. And with that being said, we have kind of run out of the time for today. So, Dami, I want to thank you once again for joining us, sharing your insights. I think, geopolitical risk is a very, hot topic, of course, in this current day and age with everything that is happening. So
Yes,
I hope, yeah.
absolutely.
I hope that it has been valuable to the, fellow risk managers that are listening to it essentially. So thank you.
I hope so. Thank you for having me, and I hope that the insights have been helpful and valuable to your viewers as well.
Thank you.